There are nights when silence speaks louder than screams, when the wind itself seems to whisper secrets of the dead, and when shadows take on shapes that feel almost alive. On those nights, you don't just see darkness, you feel it breathe. It lingers in the corners of your mind, playing with your thoughts, reminding you that you are never truly alone. And yet, somewhere in that suffocating blackness, a quiet truth exists. Every horror we face, every chilling story we hear, hides a lesson waiting to be discovered. Because behind the fear, there's always a reason. Behind the pain, a purpose. And in the heart of every haunting, a message strong enough to change a soul. Tonight, we'll descend into 3 true chilling horror stories, real accounts of terror, loss, and unexplainable mystery. But as we travel through the darkness, remember this: even in the coldest shadows, there is light. Each of these stories holds a reflection of life itself, of love that conquers death, of faith that stands tall in fear, and of courage born in the moments we least expect it. The first story comes from the small desert village of Rajasthan, India, where an ancient well sat forgotten under the dying branches of a neem tree. Locals said it was Kushta, place where lost souls were trapped, their cries echoing through the night. People said if you went near it after dark, you'd hear voices calling your name, voices that didn't belong to the living. No one dared approach it for generations. But one night, during a raging storm, a young mother named Meera heard something that shattered her heart, a child's cry coming from the direction of that very well. Her daughter Priya had been missing for 2 days, and hope was slipping away like sand through trembling fingers. Rain lashed against her window, the wind howling like a chorus of the dead. Yet through it all, she could still hear that desperate, faint sob. It sounded like Priya. It had to be her. Without a second thought, she grabbed her lantern, covered herself with a thin shawl, and ran barefoot through the mud. The storm clawed at her body, but the only sound she heard was the cry from the well. As she reached it, the flickering flame inside her lantern swayed wildly, and she peered into the darkness below. The cries grew louder, and for a moment, she could swear she heard her child calling, "Mama." The word pierced her heart. She leaned closer, tears mixing with the rain. "Priya, I'm here," she shouted. And then something cold touched her fingers. It wasn't flesh. It wasn't human. A grey, skeletal hand reached out from the blackness, its nails long and cracked, grasping at her wrist. The air turned icy. The voice changed, deep, hollow, and mocking. It whispered her name, stretching each syllable as if savoring it. Meera trembled. But instead of pulling away, she looked straight into the dark void and whispered, "You cannot scare me. My love is stronger than your curse." For a second, the world stood still. Then the hand vanished, the voice stopped, and the storm calmed as though the heavens themselves exhaled. When morning came, villagers found Meera collapsed beside the well, pale but alive. The strange thing was, the well was bone dry for the first time in decades. Some say the spirit had finally been freed. Others believe Meera's love had silenced the curse forever. Whatever the truth, that place no longer screams in the night. And Meera, she became a symbol of strength, a mother who faced what everyone else ran from, proving that courage isn't born from fearlessness. It's born from love. Fear often feels like a monster, something that hunts you, cornering you until you break. But what if fear isn't your enemy? What if it's a mirror showing you who you really are when you're stripped of everything else? Meera's story reminds us that sometimes we don't know how strong we are until the night forces us to find out. Think about the moments in your life when fear wrapped around you, moments when you stood on the edge of loss, heartbreak, or uncertainty. You could have run, you could face surrendered, but you didn't. You moved through it. That trembling step forward, no matter how small, is courage. It's the heartbeat of the human spirit refusing to die. Meera's love shattered the curse of that well, not because she wasn't afraid, but because something within her burned brighter than fear itself. And that's the secret: fear doesn't destroy you. It defines you. It shows you the parts of yourself that can survive the storm. Every haunting, every chilling moment we face in this world carries a purpose. Fear is not just darkness. It's the spark that can ignite strength. The well stands silent today, and maybe that's how it is with us too. When we face the things that haunt us, we silence them forever. Fear reveals the strength we never knew we had, and courage, born from love, can even quiet the voices of the dead. The second story comes from Japan, Deep in the mountains where the roads twist like veins through a sleeping forest, there's a tunnel there abandoned, cracked, and covered with moss known as the Tunnel of Whispers. Truck drivers say that, if you drive through it at night, your radio dies, your lights flicker, and the air grows so heavy it feels like something unseen is pressing against your chest. One driver, Satoshi, didn't believe the stories. He was practical, grounded, a man of reason. One evening, running late for a delivery, he decided to take the shortcut through that tunnel. Halfway in, his headlights dimmed, the radio crackled and fell silent. Then came the whisper, soft at first, then clearer, calling his name in a voice eerily familiar. "Satoshi, why didn't you save me?" He froze. That voice, it belonged to his brother, the one who had died years ago in an accident Satoshi blamed himself for. The whispers multiplied, layering one over another: his mother's voice, his father's, people he had lost, regrets he had buried. Panic clawed at him. He slammed his foot on the accelerator, the tunnel stretching endlessly before him. The whispers grew louder until they weren't whispers anymore. There were screams. When he burst into the open air, trembling and gasping, the night was silent again. But in that silence, he realized the truth: the tunnel hadn't been haunted by ghosts. It had been haunted by his own guilt. That night changed him. He went home, visited his parents' graves, and, for the first time, forgave himself. Sometimes, darkness isn't sent to punish us. It's sent to cleanse us, to strip away the noise and force us to face what we buried deep inside. Fear makes us look inward. It's not always about monsters or spirits. Sometimes the scariest hauntings live in our own hearts. The third story, one of quiet sorrow and deep love, is known as the Widow of Hollow Hill. In the Appalachian Mountains, decades ago, a woman named Clara lost her husband to a mining accident. She visited his grave every night, carrying a small lantern and talking to him as though he was still there. Locals pitied her. They said the mountain was cursed, that spirits wandered after dark. But she didn't care. Love had already taken away her fear. One cold autumn night, fog rolled in thick as smoke. As Clara knelt beside the grave, she saw something: his figure, faint but real, rising from the mist. His eyes were hollow, his voice a whisper. "It's cold where I am." Most people would have screamed, but Clara only smiled sadly. "Then rest, my love," she said. "I'll keep the light burning for you." And with that, the apparition faded. The air grew still. Pippa said she freed his soul that night. Love can calm even the restless dead. It's a light that doesn't fade, no matter how thick the darkness grows. Fear runs from love. That's its weakness. The Widow of Hollow Hill reminds us that love never dies, it simply changes form. The ones we lose aren't gone. They become the quiet warmth in our memories, the whisper of comfort in our loneliest nights. Then there are times when fear doesn't come from outside, but within the mind. A hiker lost in the whispering woods of Norway once heard multiple voices calling his name. Each voice led him deeper into the fog, until he felt something unseen circling him. Then, faintly, beneath the chaos, he heard a gentler voice inside his heart, his own instinct, telling him to turn back. He followed it, and hours later, stumbled onto a path that led him home. Sometimes the scariest part of being lost is not the forest itself, but the noise of confusion. When you quiet that noise, and trust your inner voice, you find your way again. In a haunted hospital in Manila, a nurse working the night shift felt unseen, hands guiding her away from a corridor just before a ceiling beam collapsed. Her fear had saved her. Pain and fear often carry divine messages. What we dread can also protect us. Every haunting can be a form of grace, terrifying, yes, but meant to steer us towards safety or growth. In Romania, a family inherited a mirror that unleashed strange violence in their home doors, slamming, screams, echoing at night. Priests came and failed, but an old grandmother decided to pray, not out of fear, but gratitude, thanking God for her family's safety, even in the midst of terror. The next morning, the mirror cracked on its own. Evil cannot withstand faith. When gratitude rises above fear, darkness loses its hold. In England, during the 1970s, a family fled a house that seemed to breathe and whisper warnings. They left in panic, thinking the home was cursed. Days later, the house exploded in a gas leak. What they thought was horror turned out to be protection. Sometimes what feels like an ending is a beginning in disguise, and sometimes what terrifies us is actually trying to save us. And then there's the story from Kerala during the floods of 2018. Survivors spoke of a woman dressed in white, appearing in the rain, guiding people to higher ground. She vanished when everyone was safe. No one knew who she was. Some said she was an angel, others a soul who once perished in a flood long ago. Maybe she was hope itself taking form, so that people could believe they weren't alone. Every story you've heard tonight, every whisper, every haunting, every flicker of fears, not just about darkness, it's about the light that followed. Fear teaches. Pain transforms. Love endures. Even the scariest nights end in dawn, so when you feel trapped in your own darkness, remember these stories. The ghosts we fear are sometimes our own emotions calling for healing. The shadows that chase us only want us to turn around and face them to find the strength, faith, and love we already carry within. There will always be nights when you feel the chill of something unseen, when life feels like a tunnel of whispers, or a storm around an old well. But remember, you are not a fear. You are the flame that walks through it. And as long as that flame burns, no darkness can ever win. Dear God, protect our hearts from the shadows that feed on fear. Give us strength to face the things we cannot see, and courage to walk through the night with faith in our hearts. Remind us that we are never alone, even when the world feels cold and haunted. Let your light guide us through every darkness, until we find peace again. Amen.